So the agenda, this is our normal meeting night, third Thursday of the month. You're all welcome to come on third Thursday and join us. We have a number of committees that work in between times. So the agenda for tonight is welcome. Hello, everybody. And then the agenda is, I'm going to introduce our guest presenters. We're putting them on first. And they have this presentation they're going to do, which I'll let them explain because I won't explain it 100% properly like them. And then there'll be question and answers. And then we'll have some quick committee reports, the communications team, waste management, renewable energy, electric vehicles, youth, bicycle transportation, and the others that might decide they want to become a committee. Then we have a quick thing to confirm our officers and any other business and a couple of announcements. One announcement that I'll make right now so I don't forget, on Saturday at the Market Building from 2 to 5, there's a waste management, or a zero waste event from 2 to 5. There are a bunch of stations going to be there to try and help you reduce your waste. So come to the market on Saturday from 2 to 5. And I'll try to remember to announce that again. But if I don't, it's on, I've announced it.
Who's running it?
Well, I'm one of the persons on the committee, Christine Hamill.
Oh, so is it a committee here?
It's not a committee of climate action team, no.
Okay.
It's a committee, it's an ad hoc committee. Thorsten, can you throw in any?
It's a new group called MAD.
Yeah.
A good group of active neighbors. Group of neighbors making a difference.
Yeah, it's an ad hoc group, and they've thrown this together, and Lee back there is part of it. So, anyway, so that's on Saturday. So everybody feel welcome to come up to that. So, okay, so now I'm going to introduce our guest speakers for tonight. We have Kim Davenport from the City of Owen Sound, Gloria Dangerfield from Grace Sauble Conservation Authority, and Chris Robinson, who's working for the City of Owen Sound. He's working out at the Conservation Authority. He's doing this study on the climate adaptation plan for the city. So I'm going to hand it over to them.
Good evening. So I'm Kim Davenport, and I am the Asset and Risk Management Coordinator for the City of Owen Sound, and the city's lead on this project, along with the Grace Sauble Conservation. Tonight, we're going to introduce you to our joint climate adaptation planning project. In early 2018, we developed a cross-functional team between the City of Owen Sound and Grace Sauble Conservation Authority to help identify a focus for mitigating risks associated with climate change. Through these discussions, we determined that risks associated with flooding, slope stability, and snow were the key risks that the city needed to address. To address these risks, we developed a plan and implemented a temporary 2-year position, which will focus on creating a spatial inventory of municipal infrastructure, land use, and a digital elevation model to analyze the risks associated with climate change. And Chris, is that...
Could you slow down just a little bit?
Sure, I'm sorry.
It's kind of echoey in here, and
I usually speak to more than 4 people at a time, so I will do my best to slow down.
Maybe on the stage. I think it'll be better out there.
Yeah.
We're demanding on
Too far, that's good. Okay. The City of Owen Sound and Grace Sauble Conservation Authority partnership has received funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to complete this 2-year climate adaptation project. Outcomes of the project will be used to evaluate the city's adaptive capacity, establish adaptation planning principles, and create an overall climate change adaptation plan for the City of Owen Sound. The climate adaptation plan will focus on the mitigation of flooding and slope hazard risks. Information will also be used to assist in emergency planning with the ability to create scenarios, identify potential evacuation zones, and determine emergency vehicle routing. The partnership between the City and Grace Sauble Conservation on this project ensures that the expertise from both organizations work together efficiently and effectively to achieve these goals and objectives. I'll let Gloria introduce Grace Sauble.
yell at me if I don't speak loud enough or too quickly. I am Gloria Dangerfield. I am the GIS database coordinator for Grace Hall Conservation Authority. This position has now, I've been there about 15 years, and the position has evolved into more information management and services. And it's a lot about making the information that we have better. And I'm also the interim communications and education lead, so I might tout that a little bit, throw a little bit about education in here as well. So what I wanted to come talk to you tonight about was what makes Grace Hall well positioned to assist and work with the City of Owen Sound on climate change adaptation planning. That being said, both climate change adaptation and mitigation is a complex process, and it certainly doesn't stop with conservation authorities nor municipalities, but it involves all citizens. It is, however, key to have agencies that set precedents, guidelines, and policies that further these goals. So for over 60 years, the province of Ontario has had conservation authorities. The CA Act was established in 1946 because of the concern throughout the province that renewable natural resources were in an unhealthy state as a result of poor land use, water, and forestry practices, and that combined with the impacts of drought led to severe soil loss and flooding problems. So a lot of people believe that conservation authorities came about after Hurricane Hazel, but it was actually about 8 years before Hurricane Hazel occurred that they enacted the CA Act. So after Hurricane Hazel, in which 81 people died, the province then recognized the importance of flood management on a local scale. So the Act was then amended to allow for conservation authorities to both acquire land for conservation and recreation purposes, as well as undertake land use planning that regulated lands and flooding to protect people and property. So in this region, it was the end of the 1950s that two conservation authorities were established. They were the Sauble Valley and the North Prairie Region Conservation Authorities. And then in 1985, they amalgamated to become Grace Hall Conservation. So on this map, this is just a map of our watershed. The area filled in with green is our watershed boundary. This darker green boundary is the drinking water source protection boundary, which we are the lead authority of, and that is legislated through the Clean Water Act to protect drinking water resources. One thing you'll notice is that our boundary is not straight lines. It doesn't follow municipal boundaries. It follows a watershed boundary. So the basis for CAs is to undertake programs on a watershed basis. So a watershed is the area of land whereby all the surface area within that watershed would eventually flow to the same water body. So any drops of water falling within one watershed, there's a good example here, would eventually flow into the same river system or lake. The water resource management on a watershed basis takes into consideration the effects of upstream and downstream practices, and it removes the straight lines of municipal boundaries, as both our water and natural resources don't follow these straight lines. Watershed management is also the recommended approach under the provincial policy statement of the Planning Act of the province. So although we're here talking about an adaptation plan for the City of Owen Sound, Grace Hall Conservation is well situated to help in this. However, we do work beyond the city boundaries. And as you can see here from these maps, both the mouth of the Sydenham River watershed and the Potawatomi into Owen Sound, and the Bothwell Creek watershed also skirts the edge of the city. So where do CAs fit into the climate change mitigation, adaptation and or mitigation? CAs, under the Conservation Authorities Act, CAs ensure the conservation, restoration, development, and management of Ontario's natural resources through programs that balance human, environmental, and economic needs. So we want to protect all the natural resources that we can. However, we do recognize there are economic needs, and we certainly don't want to prevent development altogether. Ontario is uniquely resilient compared to the rest of Canada, largely because of conservation authorities. That's resilient to flooding. We actually are relatively resilient in this province because we've done a really good job of keeping development out of floodplains. The nature of what we do every day mitigates and responds to the impacts of weather. I'm going to get into that a little more in a bit. And just one interesting note is that the areas most affected by recent severe flooding were in areas that were outside of CA jurisdiction. So conservation authorities do not cover the whole of the province. They're primarily in the south with a few in the northern municipalities like Sudbury and North Bay, the Sioux, and Thunder Bay. So resiliency, I think this is a key word, both as human beings and the world that surrounds us. Being resilient to change is what sets us up for success. And through Conservation Authority program, we support resiliency of our watersheds through things like keeping development in the high-risk areas. As the delegated authority on natural hazards under the provincial policy statement and through our permitting role under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act, our planning staff work tirelessly to keep development out of flood-prone areas and floodplains. We continuously strive to increase our understanding of flood scenarios. We've recently undertaken several projects before we started the work with the City of Owen Sound under the National Disaster Mitigation Program. We were looking at flooding scenarios in areas like the Bothwell watershed and the Craig Lake Camperdown area. We were undertaking risk assessments of those areas and also creating flood mapping. And Chris is going to get into that a little bit later about the risk assessments. We monitor water quality through benthic sampling, so literally collecting insects in our water courses. And different types of insects are good indicators of good water quality. So that's one of the things we're monitoring, as well as E. coli and phosphorus testing. We also maintain an extensive network of stream gauges and cameras that monitor and predict flood conditions. We're consistently improving our data, and this is something we're very proud of. I'm a little bit biased, but we have a very good process in our office of collecting new information, going on site visits, having GPS units, having good quality RTK units, using air photo interpretation to update all of our information. And this is something we do on a daily basis. Most recently, we've acquired LiDAR data, which is light detection and ranging within certain areas of our watershed. This is very high quality elevation information, which is very important to the work we do. We preserve wetlands, both through our regulatory role as well as through the ownership of many lands with very significant wetland habitat. A good example of that is Rockland Marsh. It's a huge property that we own with very significant wetland habitat. And wetlands are a type of natural infrastructure. They provide buffers that reduce flooding risks in areas away from wetlands. And they also act as filters for improved water quality and provide valuable wetland habitat. You'll often see watersheds within wetlands respond slower and deal better with extreme flooding events. And finally, we plant trees. We plant a lot of trees. I think it was estimated when our last forestry manager retired, she had planted or been involved in the planting of over 4 million trees in our watershed. That's a huge amount of trees. forested riparian areas. So when I say riparian, I mean areas within 30 meters from a water course or water body. This helps to reduce things like erosion and nutrient loss. So I'm going to run through these slides fairly quickly so Chris can get to his presentation, but these are just some good graphics of some of the things that we do, reiterating some of the stuff that I just went over. But as mentioned, we do protecting people and property from flooding is an absolute priority of ours. Most people that have been involved with Gray Solid Conservation knows our Water Resources Coordinator, John Bidorf, who's very passionate about things like citizen science and using resourceful ways of getting fairly good information and getting it out to the public. If you go on our website, you can look at our current watersheds conditions map, and there's a lot of information on there, including hydrographs and things like that, where we can measure flows, predict what the flows and levels are going to be. Again, the data gathering is very important. These are just some graphics of some of this information that we've collected, the huge amount of data that we collected under national disaster mitigation programs. These are the flight lines from our recent LiDAR acquisition. And some good examples of the elevation. This is a digital elevation model, so each pixel in the image has an elevation associated with it. And this is an example of the kind of information you get from LiDAR. So you can do things like measure tree heights and that type of thing, as well as know the elevations on the ground. Watershed monitoring. So every 5 years, we produce a watershed report card. Our most recent one was 2018. This is a big part of what conservation authorities do. It's unique to conservation authorities, generally speaking. And we use common factors that indicate good watershed health. Those are surface water quality, and those are the things that I mentioned, the benefits, so the bugs that are collected in the water courses, the E. coli and the phosphorus. We add those together and get an average and assign grades. Forest cover. We measure the total amount of forest cover in a watershed, the amount of riparian area, so that 30-meter buffer from water courses that is forested, as well as the amount of interior forest. So that's 100 meters from the edge of the forest in, because interior forest is an important indicator of watershed health as well. So we gather all this information and we put it into a nice, succinct, publicly consumable document with maps and grades for each indicator. The thing that we've done this for a few years now, the thing that we've started to do recently, however, is use this to create targeted programming. So we're taking the information from the report card, finding those sub-watersheds where the health is low, and prioritizing our activities based on that information. Especially, it helps us to prioritize when certain grades are easily achieved to bump up a grade. So those are our top priorities. We pick the low-hanging fruits to start, and then we look at the ones that are going to be a longer term, more work basically in the longer term to get to move up those grades. So we recently started a stewardship program, and those people work with landowners to secure grants and funding to do things like cattle fencing, planting trees in riparian areas, and of course, again, just extensive planting and that sort of thing. One of the other things I wanted to mention before I go is we do own 30,000 acres of land, and we do a lot with very little. This is a little graphic of how our CA stacks up provincially. So there are 36 CAs in the province. We have 0.6% of the provincial population within our watershed. 0.8% of all conservation authority staff, or about 25, sometimes up to 30 in the summer when we have extra staff on for planting and things. We have 0.9% of all the CA revenue, and revenue comes from municipality, mainly from municipal levy and self-generated revenue, with a tiny bit coming from the province and donations. We have 2.9% of all the watershed area 3.8, we own 3.8% of the wetlands of all Conservation Authority area in the province. We have 7.8% of the owned lands, 9.8% of all the authority-owned areas of natural and scientific interest, and we have 10.3% of all the owned forests. So we do quite a bit with a little when you consider the amount of wetlands that we're protecting and forest and entities. And finally, I said I would mention this, education. I think it's key. It has numerous benefits, educating both youth and adults. We want citizens to grow with close ties to the natural environment and conservation authority so that they become strong ambassadors like most of you. So ambassadors for a healthy watershed and just the environment that surrounds them. We operate numerous education programs and we are working on expanding those currently. So now I'm going to pass it off to Chris Robinson, who is the Geospatial and Adaptation Plan Technician.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Robinson. I'm the Geospatial and Adaptation Technician. I think that's like that. So I'm working on the climate adaptation plan for the City of Owen Sound in partnership with Great Solid Conservation Authority. So over the next, I guess year and a half now, because it's already been 6 months, and I can't believe that. Working on this project, I'll work with the City of Owen Sound, Great Solid Conservation Authority to create an adaptation, a climate adaptation plan, as well as do a lot of stormwater modeling for the city. My educational background, I'm an environmental technologist, and I've worked on a few climate change projects. I've worked on this one, and then I did a science piece for the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority for their climate adaptation plan as well. And then for the rest of it, I mostly do GIS and stormwater and riverine flooding. So this is kind of an overview of what an adaptation plan is from the six-step guide from the Planning Association. Canadian Planning Institute. So they have a small guide for small rural municipalities on how to do an adaptation plan, and we follow these steps. Another step process that I definitely follow when making this is the ICLEI process that was developed through Environment Canada and ICLEI.
Excuse me, could you slow down a little bit and just project your voice out this way?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Okay.
Thank
So another process that we're using is from the ICLEI process that was developed. They call it the ICLEI process, but it was developed by the federal government and ICLEI. A lot of municipalities use that, and we'll use that circular process to kind of evaluate the newer project as we go. Is that loud enough, and can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
But still slow down a bit.
Slow down a bit.
Slow down. So it's a six-step process. So getting started is building public awareness and stuff like that. We're actually moving that to the second step because we believe we need some science to show you folks how the climate is changing so that you can get more involved. And I think science is super important. I love science. It's what I do for a job. So we're more in step 2 right now, which is gathering scientific information, preparing reports to give to the public and stuff like that. And we'll slowly work our way through the process to develop inventories in step 3, asset and risk management, and then establish an adaptation plan and then constantly review it as we go, which is step 6. And it's a circular process. So once we're done the adaptation plan, it doesn't stop there. It continues to evolve as the years go on. It gets reviewed every year as things get accomplished, which is something to kind of think about. So we're not stopping when this project's over. The city will continue to work on it because it's part of their policy down the road. Any questions so far? Yes.
Why don't we have green bins?
I don't know. I can't.
Okay. You're not the one to ask.
No, I'm not the one to ask.
Okay, I've got to find someone to.
But that might be something that comes out of this plan in the end. It might be a thing to move towards. So I'm going to go through a bunch of historical data and kind of show you how the climate has changed over the last 127 years. There's a bit of a gap in data. A lot of people say there's a lot of gaps in historical climate data, which there is, usually around 1914 to 1918 and 1938 to 1945. We all know why that happened. I guess there was no one around to collect the data. So I'm just going to kind of go through this information. It's a lot, but I find it interesting, so you might find it interesting. I stare at it a lot, so first thing to realize is that we break down climate data into seasons. Seasons are important because different seasons have different climate. Like your climate changes through the season. Winter is different than summer. So you're not taking a mean average of the entire year because there's really hot days and really cold days. So you're going to want to break it down by season to season. So there were 2 weather stations in the city of Owen Sound. So there's the one that was set up in 1879 that ran until 1962, and then it was taken down, and then 3 years later it was put back up in 1965, and they ran it until 2006, where Environment Canada got their 30 years of data and took it down. I have a lot of complaints about that, but I won't go into it. So looking at this, we're talking about the spring temperature data. And in the 1800s, so from 1880 to 1960, the minimum temperature in spring went up by about 118%, which is 2 degrees on average. And your mean temperature went up by about 1.5 degrees on average. Your maximum temperature didn't go up that much. 9% increase isn't that interesting. Because, that can vary. And if it's going one way, it's going to go one way. In the summer, not much changed. The minimum temperature went up by almost 2 degrees, but it's the summer, it's hot. Depending on then, the data is not super great because it was taken all by hand and the equipment was a little less, so I'm chalking that up to that. And the mean temperature and maximum temperature didn't change significantly enough to be like, wow, the climate's changing. In the summer, at least. For fall temperatures, it went up about 32% in the minimum temperature, and minimum temperature is very important, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But it went up by about 1 degree, and it's all kind of going up in every season by about 1 degree Celsius to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is interesting, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the winter temperatures, winter went up about 1 degree in the time period there as well. So mostly you're looking at winter's maximum temperature went up 60%, so you had much warmer days. And then the other thing to take out is spring was much more warmer in the mid temperatures, which I'll get into in a bit. So when the station was put back up, so it was taken down, they moved it, they put it back up 2 years later because someone finally put it back together again. So then we have the data linearly marked for 1965 to 2006. And in that time period, in the spring, we went up about 200%, 265%, which is about a 2 degree difference in minimum temperature. Now, the reason that minimum temperature is so important in the spring and winter is because the warmer it is, the more evaporation there is in the winter. The more evaporation there is, the more precipitation there is, and bring in more snow. So if there's more snow on the ground, it's going to melt, and when the snow melts, there's going to be water. And if it melts rapidly, then you get flooding. Which, as I've worked for conservation authorities for the last 4 years, flooding is one of our major things, and it's flooding bad, especially when it inundates everybody's basements, and everybody doesn't like when their basement's flooded, and the ground's frozen as well. So you're looking at a minimum temperature increase of about 2 degrees, but it's about 265%. Your maximum temperature didn't go up that much, and you'll notice that in Owen Sound. And I believe that's because of the Great Lakes that are keeping our maximum temperatures down a little bit because we have those water bodies to buffer us. Our mean temperature went up about 40% in that time period. So for summer, it didn't change that much. And again, I believe that's because of the Great Lakes. I'm not a climate scientist, so I can't say that for sure. But it's of note. Minimum temperature only went up 15%, but we're still looking at a degree to 2 degrees increase over that time period. Yeah, about 45 years. Fall didn't change that much. It's only about 0.5 degrees. It's one of the less interesting months, except for when it comes to rainfall. We'll get into that in a second. And then winter. So winter went up about 2.5 degrees. Even though that's a 20% increase, that's a pretty major thing. The warmer the winter is, the more snow you get. And lately, if you've been noticing, it rains a lot more in the winter. So you get more rain on snow events. And I'll get into that when we get into the rain data. And rain on snow events are important to realize because you have all that snow on the ground because it snows so much. And then rain comes and it melts all the snow. And then you have about all that volume of snow plus the rain going down into our rivers, expanding the floodplains, or inundating our stormwater systems, which floods houses, overtops roads, and emergency services can't get to people. People are evacuated and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to know. Also, the maximum temperature for winter is gone up 90%, which is about 1.8 degrees. So there's the change in mean temperatures summarized there for 1965 to 2006. It's a lot of numbers, and I feel like people get lost in those numbers, but it's important to understand that a lot went into this. So you're looking at about the mean temperature in spring is going up 265%, and then your winter temperatures are going up from anywhere from 27, so about 30% to 90% for min and max. And then this is just the increases over the 127 years. Sorry, I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I misquote stuff. So spring has gone up about 154%. Winter has gotten warmer by 20%, and that's about 2 degrees. And across the board for the colder months, it's about 2 degrees, which is important to notice. Actually, I was watching a TED Talk, because that's what we do late at night. And there's one climate scientist that works out of in Manitoba, and the only difference atmospherically for temperature, we've noticed a 1.5% increase in atmospheric temperature across the globe. And we're heading towards, if we continue, a 4-degree increase by 2100. So if it was 4 degrees cooler from now, it would have been the last ice age. So we're actually going 8 degrees past what the last ice age was. So we're shifting into a new age, if that makes sense, where things are going to be warmer, there's going to be more rain, but there's going to be more drought. It's going to be that significant of a change that it's like an ice age, which happened 10,000 years ago. So that gives you kind of perspective of how atmospherically the world is changing. Just to do a little bit. So rainfall is another thing that's very important. It's changed over the last 127 years. In the 1800s, in winter, there's actually less rain. There's actually less rain overall in the 1800s, which is interesting. I don't really know why, but there was a lot of snow though. One year they got 4 meters of snow. That's crazy. But the more interesting data is 1965 to 2006. The records are a little better. So if you look at this, is just rain, precipitation, rain, not precipitation and snow. So for your spring, that should say 2000. No, 19. That says 1965. I missed that. So spring, we had about a 50% increase in rain. So there's 50% more precipitation, which is interesting. There's less rain in summer, right? Which is pretty common. Like everybody says, there's going to be less rain in summer. Your fall, you're looking at a 27% increase. But your winter, you're actually looking at 129% increase. Because we're actually getting more rain in winter than we've ever got before. Which again, was rain on snow events, the flooding, displaced people, affecting people, etc. Yep.
Can you just go back up?
Yep.
Okay, so at the top it says rainfall 65 to 2006. Then you've got 1879, 1962.
Yeah, so that's a typo.
Okay. So
Yeah, I changed it. I copied and pasted the starts and then changed them.
I
That's my
completely
fault.
understand that.
Yeah.
So where it says 1879, it should say
It should say 1965 here, and it should
And then
say
it says
2006.
That makes so much more sense.
That's my fault.
Okay.
Yes.
I completely
Yes, but it's not, so we have a lot of records. So John Bedore at the Conservation Authority has a lot of rain data that he's collected, rain temperature, all that kind of information that he's collected. But the problem is that they're not consistent because it's a network done by people like yourselves that are interested people that sometimes collect the data and sometimes don't collect the data depending if they go out to check the rain gauge. So it's not information that I can use in my curve. So the MOE had climate stations that this one was set up in 1965 and it ran to 2006 because they got their 30 years of data. And they were like, okay, time to take them down. We don't have money to fund these anymore. So they just don't. We don't have money. So we only actually have until 2006 and then it cuts. So the nice thing about those stations is they're really good scientific machinery, right? They've got all the instruments you want in them, and they're not taken by someone that runs into their backyard and measures how much is in the cup and that kind of stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Ministry of Environment was a provincial ministry,
Yeah.
not federal.
Not
So who defunded that?
who defunded that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone. They were mandated to collect 30 years of data, and then the funding ran out. So they were only mandated to collect that time period of data, and then they're like, because we don't have the money to run them, right? You don't have the money to run the lights.
It's rather important.
It is important.
Because things are coffee sticks.
Yeah, it is very important. Yeah. Yep. Sorry.
What about the ship airport and like the weather network still has data for the current temperature, they have historical data.
They do, but they want you to pay for it. I can scrape it off their website every day, but so no, because they're not an air base. Usually they don't collect data if they're not an air base, and I know that because I was in the air base.
Hi, I just have a question, and I don't know if you can answer it, but we're really focusing on the impact for people, i.e., my basement gets flooded, which is very inconvenient, and roads get flooded. Okay. But what I'm more interested in is, what is that telling us about impact on our environment, i.e., our soil? Are we getting more erosion?
So I'll talk about that.
Yeah, like I'm just curious, because to me, the sustainability, like our trees drowning, I mean... that's kind of, is there any information in terms of any impact because of the greater amount of flooding that you're aware of?
Yeah, so with more flooding, so with the higher stream flows, you're going to get higher erosion, especially if banks aren't stabilized. Your meander belts are going to shift more often. You're going to get more sediment with more rainfall, right? So
in the water,
There's a possibility in places like Erie, for example, you're going to get more algal blooms. We don't see a lot of algal blooms out here because they're very deep, and we do a good job managing our phosphorus.
We get a lot of pesticides in the water too,
So you will see more erosion because there's more often those high intensity storm events. There's more rain overall. The ground is wetter. Will it affect soil chemistry? There isn't a lot of, at least what I've read, science to say that soil chemistry is changing, like the bugs in the soil and stuff.
Oh, the soil chemistry is definitely changing.
Yeah,
but whether it's due to the flooding or not, I don't know.
But it's not due to flooding. It is changing more because of pollutants. It's not changing so much because the air is hot. Maybe in the first few centimeters of ground, but everything below that it's pretty resilient.
Yeah, well, UN declared Year of the Soil was about 2 years ago, so it is a global concern. But I was just wondering, in this particular area with the amount of rainfall, if there was any data or any interpretation of that impact on farmers or forests or any of that stuff.
Well,
I mean, I don't. I'm just curious.
So forests are actually, when it comes to flooding, are actually great because they slow that down. They're rooted, so they're actually holding the soil back. So forests actually probably love the more water. Like the more water they get, the better. But when you get into areas like hardened shorelines and rivers, you're going to see faster water, which means downstream. You'll get more downstream blowout in those smaller areas and stuff like that, which does affect fish habitat. It does affect microinvertebrates. It does affect melaleuca and stuff. So there's definitely those aspects. Our watershed's pretty resistant up here to that because of how well maintained it is. And so I wouldn't be too concerned about water quality is something to be concerned about, but we don't have enough data. And John seems to think that our water quality is still pretty good. On a CA level, we do a lot of water quality analysis and stuff. We could definitely look into meander belts within the city because I know there's a lot of rivers that aren't hardened. And we can do that through geospatial exercises and stuff like that. So if that's something that's...
I know there's problems with the rivers, and the Canadian Geographic put out a special thing on cities or whatever, and the centerfold was the Great Lakes and all the hot spots around the Great Lakes. It was pretty jarring to think that even on the Bruce Peninsula, there's a lot of red spots, so it's a problem. But it may or may not be particularly related to the amount of rainfall, so thank you.
Your data there for the winter, for instance, is that not, doesn't include snowfall?
It doesn't include
It's
snowfall.
just rainfall.
That's just precipitation. Snowfall, we have that data. I'm definitely going to look into that data, but the assumption with climate change is we're going to just get more snow, which sucks because I've spent one winter here. Already. Yeah.
I assume all those measurements are in millimeters?
Yeah, they're in millimeters.
Okay.
If they were in inches, I convert them to millimeters. And actually, Canada switched pretty fast when it came to inches to millimeters and for their weather stations. It was actually in the 90s or 50s or something when they switched. Or at least that station. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Any other questions?
In regards to the quality of the rainfall,
Yep.
did you do any testing as to the pH level change over the last 50 years?
No, because no one's collected that.
I thought, now, I was testing water up to the year 2006 when people stopped asking me because I got a kick for 40 years. I noticed after that, the changes in rainfall were much more dramatic in the 10 years thereafter than the numbers that you have.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, this is a linear analysis. So the thing is, it buffers out a lot of the years that like it spikes for a bit and then it goes back down. I try to make it as fair as possible without bringing in all those spikes. For example, when I presented in front of the board for temperatures, they talked about one gentleman mentioned that there was a large spike in temperatures in a period, and my analysis kind of buffers that out because you don't want those outliers. So this is very like mean analysis. Like if you wanted to apply a certain curve to it, you could probably get more accurate numbers than this. I just haven't had the time to sit down.
And also in your testing, did you include or anticipate the importance of the ground cover in relation to modification of temperatures and rainfall? Because at one time this whole area was all wooded, and did that ever come into play in determining?
No, that didn't come into play. So I know from my studies at school, most of southern Ontario has been deforested several times in the last 200 years since we started foresting in southern Ontario. So it's been farmland here for a pretty long period of time. And even when you look at the aerial photography, you can see that. And things haven't changed too much. We've actually gained forests up here in the last 20 to...
So I'm not sure how much science is still coming.
There's more.
So maybe I'd just like to, just finish the presentation.
So yeah, so that's right. And rain, not snow. And then this is from 1990. So I just did analysis from 100 years. So in the winter we've seen a 40% increase of rain in the winter, and then in the spring we've seen a 40% increase. In the fall we've seen less, and then in the summer we've seen about 9%. So that's over a 100-year average. So yeah. So now we're going to get into projections. So Environment Canada, I had a little sheet. Is it over there now? did most of the analysis for Environment Canada. They did all their curves. So there were originally, when I started doing climate work, there were 3 scenarios that were given. There was the 2.4, the 4.5, and the 8.5 scenario, and the AR5 models, which are climate greenhouse gas models. So when I started, there was the 2.4. They threw that out because we've surpassed it, which I think is kind of, it's not funny, it's morbidly funny, I guess. But so now we only look at the 4.5 and the 8.5 projections. So this kind of gives you an idea of, based on greenhouse gas emission scenarios that Environment Canada said, yeah, these are good, and Prairie Climate Center did a lot of the analysis for. They also have a great website if you want to look at it. It's called Climate Atlas. If you haven't looked at it, it's got a lot of pretty maps. As a GIS guy, I like pretty maps. So this kind of gives you an idea of the mean from 1976 in Owen Sound to 2005. Again, you notice how it only goes to 2005, but they took this station down to 2006. So there we go. So it kind of gives you an idea of where it is then, and where it will be in 2021 to 2050, and then 2051 to about 2100 or 2080. So I think there's some handouts around. If you guys want to pass those around, because these numbers are hard to see, but it gives you an idea of what we might be looking at for certain things like precipitation in rain. I think that's overall precipitation, so that's rain or snow. And then you've got your tropical nights, your very hot days, your very cold days, your frost season length, which is interesting because that's shrinking. So, for example, you've got your frost season, and then you can see how it's shrinking by about 20 days. It shrinks by, what does it go up?
Frost 3.
Oh, that's frost 3. Sorry. It decreases in this one, which is interesting, but it increases in your more mean and high projections, and then you've got and then it increases more drastically towards the end of the century as we continue to emit greenhouse gases in the air. Your dates of frost, it kind of gives you an estimation on that. Your very hot days, so we're not going to have many very cold days. We actually didn't have any cold days or mean cold days based on year, so it went out to 0. So I guess there weren't that many cold days in Owen Sound. You can't have negative, so I don't know why it's 0. But there aren't going to be any. They're projecting that there aren't going to be any days below -30. Period. That's not without with wind chill maybe, but solid -30 in a box somewhere out in the woods, you're not going to get to that. But you're going to get more days over 30, which is an interesting thing when it comes to the city, because for the city, for example, one of their adaptation strategies might be to open cooling centers for people to go to, so they can cool down if they don't have an air conditioner, or places that they can walk around in the mall and stuff. So you're looking at more precipitation, which could cause more flooding and stuff like that. I keep saying flooding. And then your mean temperature increases. And if you want this information, you can take a card or just email me. I'll send it to you. I'll send you a bunch of links that you can spend hours looking at like I do. And then when you get into your heart, so this is if we do nothing, we keep polluting and don't care. And for a lot of the world, it's not doing, but for us at least, we're doing something with it. So you're getting a higher increase, so you're losing a lot more. There's going to be a lot more days without frost. Your precipitation is going to go up. You're looking in the high range. You're looking at 1,200 millimeters of rain compared to where it was at 1,000 millimeters of rain, or not rain, precipitation overall. Your tropical nights are going to go up drastically. Your very hot days, if we keep going the way that we're going, one day you might see your whole summer be over 30 degrees Celsius, which is very high heat when it's hot. That's neat. And then no very cold days, stuff like that. Yes?
What does the heading mean, RCP 8.5 and last slide 4.5?
So there are different climate emission scenarios. So it's the amount of greenhouse gases that are estimated to be produced by human beings by that go into the atmosphere. Those numbers then feed the models, which then give you projections, if that makes sense. So it's the amount of tonnage of, so this is a scenario number. So there's probably way more than this, but those are the most stable scenario numbers. And then that's it's weird. So the greenhouse gas and carbon dioxide that are emitted into the humans or into the atmosphere as a result of humans. So they're different scenarios, right? So this is if we start doing something about it now, it'll only get this bad. This is if we do nothing about it, it'll get way worse, if that makes sense.
So what part per million of CO2 in the atmosphere are those things correlated to?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but you can look it up. I can provide you the information to look it up, but I don't know how many parts per million in CO2 that are going to be in the atmosphere.
Isn't that what it's based on?
It is, yes, but I can't,
You just have to go to Google and type RCP 8.5 scenario.
So I don't know it off the top of my head. There's certain calibrations that were put into that model. Like I'm not, again, the guy that made these models. Prairie Climate Center made these models under funding by Environment Canada. So those are the scenarios that they put out based on certain stable climate models that made sense based on climate emissions, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
I guess
Do you want the... Any more questions about this stuff? No? Okay. So this project has a main focus on stormwater because one of the major things that we're starting to notice when it comes to city and asset management is that there's more flooding more often. For example, I think 5 years ago, the city of Owen Sound experienced a 100-year storm. Several houses were flooded. A 100-year storm means there's a probability of 1 out of 100 to happen that year. If that makes sense. So your probability of a 100-year storm is 0.00. Yeah, 0.001% chance that's going to happen. Right? Out of 100. So yeah, they don't happen very often. They weren't supposed to happen very often. Right?
0.001%.
So it's supposed to happen 1 in 100 years. But they don't always happen 1 in 100 years. Some people are like, so it happens every 100 years. It doesn't happen every 100 years, but now it's actually happening every, like, Owen Sound's experienced a few in the last 20 years. So like that, 2 in the last 10 years. So Owen Sound's experienced 200-year storms in the last 10 years. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how more often these storms are happening. For example, all the flooding out in the northeast of Canada or Ontario this year was all 100-year events. So that kind of gives you an idea of the amount of water that's coming out. Now, Owen Sound's experienced 2 of those in the last 10 years, which is pretty crazy. It's a lot of water. The only storm that we have, the storm that we use to regulate things like floodplains and stuff like that is the Timmins storm, which is a 1,400-year storm based on my calculations. I think it's a 1,400-year storm. That's based on an IDF curve, which is an intensity, duration, frequency curve. Anyways, I can talk about this stuff right. So concerning stormwater, we're going to have more rain, we're going to have more snow. So that means more frequent intense storm events that could lead to flooding. More rain and snow events or frozen ground lead to flooding. Water can't get into the ground if it's frozen, and in those winter months when it rains, the ground's frozen. So it's just got to go over land and flood everything. So continue considering stormwater. So with an increasing intensity and frequency of these storms, stormwater systems become overwhelmed, and this can cause flooding in homes, shops, and businesses, damage to infrastructure, displacement of people. So if people's homes are flooded, where are we going to put those 100 people that just got pushed out of their homes and don't have overland flood insurance, because that's not a common thing in Ontario. And then reduced access for things like EMS. So if the roads are topped over and we're looking at 0.3%. Because 0.3 meters of flooding, the ambulance isn't going to drive through that because they're going to get washed away. So all those people on the other side, they're stranded. They can't get an out. They could be hurt, that kind of stuff. So this stuff is really important, and that's why climate change is such a factor when it comes to things like flooding. So we're going to do a risk assessment along with the adaptation plan, which will assess the risk of flooding within the city of Owen Sound with climate change as a part of it. So we'll use IEFers from the University of Western that they've been working on and constantly improving over the last, I think they've been working on it for 15 years. So we're going to use those curves to project the amount of storms that might happen instead of the current 100-year storm. That's probably now a 50-year storm. It'll now be a different 100-year storm. We'll use those to kind of get an idea of how bad the flooding is going to be in the city. So a risk assessment is essentially, we're looking at everything that's flooded, and we go, okay, now we're going to assign a dollar value through that with a bunch of geospatial information. So there's a big study by the university, the provincial government of Alberta in 2015 when they got all that flooding. So they have a bunch of information that they collected. So I'm going to use that data to project this stuff. We're going to do a higher risk assessment to determine the risk of the city, and then based on that, we'll prioritize areas and try to get change done in those areas. All right. So we have done risk assessments at the Conservation Authority before through the National Disaster Mitigation Program. So this is Bothwell Creek. It's just east of the city of Owen Sound. Actually, here's so here's the shoreline here for Owen Sound. So it's just this blue line that goes around the edge. The little red lines here, I wish they were bigger, but those are roads that are not accessible in the Timmins storm. You can't get over those roads. Or I guess you could try. But, and then this is the floodplain that's generated from that. So there are affected structures in there. There's a few pieces of affected critical infrastructure in the town of Meeker. And then we get a big, nice chart like this that kind of tells us the damages in those storms and the affected people based on the 2016 census. Hopefully we'll get a new census at some point to get better data. Maybe not from the surveys So in the 25-year event is when things start to happen. In Bothwell Creek, for example, and we can guess, well, we can project, it's not a guess, it's scientifically done, the amount of damages and people that are affected and the chance of those storms happening. And then we can kind of look at how much we need to invest every year into those infrastructure to kind of mitigate that down the road so that we can stop it from happening. So if you put away this money every year, you'd be able to pay for the damages that those storms cause. And that kind of gives cities and towns and governing bodies an idea of like how damaging this stuff is. So concerning other topics, so I know you. Yep.
Sorry, question to that. I was talking with GBOSCAT from Georgian Bluffs earlier this year, and they were basically complaining that costs of road repairs due to floodings are exploding, and they're cutting back everywhere. Is it possible to get real numbers on the cost that we currently already experience, or is that a state secret?
Sorry, you're looking for costs on what we spend on road repair?
Just road, not just in Owen Sound, but I mean, the problem is Owen Sound is only one municipality and we're a much larger area, so I think those types of assessments make more sense. Like out of statistical reasons, if you increase in scale and look at multiple municipalities or counties or
so that's
play around with that, but the cost of works is.
Yeah, we won't be analyzing any data outside of the city of Owen Sound, but we will be looking at other types of data as well and analyzing the risks associated with that and the costs of that. So not just the damage to residential property, but also what that impact is on our infrastructure and how that is reducing our cost of maintaining and repair.
I'm just asking about past costs, not just future, past costs.
We would be looking at a trend as well as projecting into the future.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll look at historical data as well in the future. Actually, the Conservation Authority is better for that because we've done risk assessments and the all conservation authorities funded through the National Forest Mitigation Program did similar things to what I did here for Multiple Creek and this and I think 7 municipalities, and I also did it for Mississauga Valley Conservation Authority. So you can actually guess how much you have to put away every year for those damages based on a bunch of crazy calculations it's not actually that crazy. It kind of makes sense. But through the stuff that the NRF did back in the 80s, revised in 92 though. So those are, this number here is kind of, annual expenses are kind of the idea of how much you would have to put away every year, just in case that event were to happen.
That's just what's lost, that money is gone, basically.
Well, you have to put it away to like pay for it down the road, so you should be putting that money away just in case. It's like putting money away just in case you have to take your dog to the vet, right?
You're building reserves.
Yeah, building reserves just in case that happens. That's a guesstimate or a projection. I will say guesstimation, but it is a projection on how much that
It's an investment. It's a cost.
Yes. Yeah.
Pure cost.
Yeah, so it calculates the pure cost, and then you can calculate from there how much you would have to put away based on probability of the event happening.
Yes, question. Yeah, it seems to me the risk is associated with how quickly you can get rid of water in a particular area. How quickly can you get rid of this water that has appeared suddenly?
We don't like to say how quickly. We like to delay it.
Well, that's associated with the risk.
Pardon me? How quickly can we get rid of this water? But we
Well,
like to say,
what I guess what I'm speaking about is as surrounding municipalities want to discharge that water faster so they don't get flooding.
yeah.
I think Owen Sound sits at the downhill.
Yes, and that's true. But a lot of, because of the conservation authorities, a lot of that, we don't try to get rid of water quickly. We try to slow it down. That's actually the practice.
Like the Potawatomi, the mouth of the Potawatomi, we just channelized it.
Yes, and they did, and that was probably...
That shouldn't have been done.
That was probably in the 80s or before the 80s when that was the solution, was to just get rid of the water. But
Right.
now, with regulations and stuff like that, we try to pull the water back and slowly discharge it at a rate at which that it can continue to go downstream. Because it'll be flooded, but it won't... It'll stop the water from blowing out everything downstream.
Right, so the city doesn't have to worry about extra water coming from the surrounding area.
From where?
The surrounding area, we're being downhill. Or downhill.
Yes, we do. We still
So
have
you're not going to be holding it all back.
No, we don't hold it all back, but we try to hold it back.
But is that coordinated in any way?
We are going to be looking at the inflows into the city and how it affects the city and whether or not that is causing flooding situations and whether or not our infrastructure, whether it be natural or engineered infrastructure, is managing the inflows of water. So that's going to be definitely part of the analysis.
Something else to worry about, sure.
Well, I worry about it.
Do these numbers in this chart include, is it just floodplain or does it include shoreline wave uprush?
It only includes floodplain. We didn't do shoreline wave uprush because that wasn't funded for the project. We could do shoreline wave uprush.
You
That would be
define
pretty
that for a moment, please.
Shoreline wave uprush?
Yeah.
So you've got your 100-year lake levels,
Yes.
and then how far the waves are going to hit from there forward. That's usually short. That's shoreline uprush.
Well, that's happened this year. We have.
Yeah, so that happened today, actually.
Absolutely.
So-
Lots of frontage,
Yeah.
tons of frontage.
Yeah, so that is definitely an analysis that could be done.
It's not
But it's not included in this. But that could be easily done with flood inundation mapping. I could probably do that in 2 or 10 minutes if you want me to. Let you know how that turns out. You just have to ask. Grab my card and email me all over. Any more questions?
There's been a couple of references to samples that you've taken off the Sidney River to see what's available, what's going on in the rivers. So I live further away from Harrison Park, between Harrison Park and Mill Dam.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of stuff that goes floating by is horrible. It looks like algae to me. I don't know what it really is. And the bottom is getting, I kayaking around there, and the bottom is getting filled up. So what, I don't understand how it can be that good quality.
You could be confusing algae with other aquatic.
So what would that be? Floating
I'm
across.
not a biologist.
Do you know from the conservation? Do you know what it is?
I'm not sure, yeah.
But I could give you John's card. John's card over there. John, he's our biologist, and he's very, very knowledgeable, and he loves that. We'll talk to you for hours.
No, throughout the summer.
Throughout the summer,
Yeah.
and near the mill day.
I know I'm before the Jubilee Bridge, and between there and the park, and so it just seems it's really a slower flow because the beam is stopped, right?
So in channels that are slower flow, you're going to get more plant growth because they can actually hang on. They have a little bit of that. But if it's actual algae and if it is a concern, then I'm sure up to John and his cards over there and an email or phone, he'll be able to talk to you. Yep.
I just point out that there is a group that formed a few years ago and worked with both conservation authorities and the Ministry of Environment did water testing in that city. So I'm not sure whether.
I think their findings were that it was okay.
Pardon me?
I think their findings were that it was actually.
Yeah, and it is algae. I mean, it's a pond. It's not the dam creates a pond, not a normal river.
I just wanted to speak that basically when people say algae as in like kind of bad stuff, they're usually referring to cyanobacteria, which is toxic. The blue-green microalgae, but the macroalgae, which is the plants, those are kind of the good guys. And so if you're seeing those, that's a good thing.
And it depends if it's a certain environment of the stream. There's a lot of factors that lead into that. So if it's a slower moving stream, you're going to see more plant growth and something that's like moss and stuff like that.
No, this is floating. This is
floating, like mass. Okay, but is it heavy or is it like?
Well, I have to kind of push it out of the way so I can get out of the
Yeah, that might just be nice. Because blue-green algae is usually like a nice. Any more questions?
According to Wikipedia, the parts per million of carbon in the 8.5 at year 2050 is about 625, and the low carbon is at about 525. And at year 2000, we were at 350, and we've gone up and we keep going up.
It's about 380 now.
So we're getting there, slowly. So I can go through this and then you guys can come up to me and ask me questions. So considering other topics, so there's a lot more other things that we're going to consider with climate action plan, climate adaptation plan for the city of Lone Sound, not just stormwater stuff. So the climate adaptation plan will take into consideration most of the effects of climate change within a broad view of economic and social effects. This will take form over the next few months in internal and external stakeholder meetings, so you folks will be able to come to those and say your piece and stuff. Meetings for the City of Lone Sound. This will help to guide the policy and climate adaptation plan as we write it and as it comes up to review in the circular process. And as more ideas and information come forward. So it's a constantly adapting plan. It's going to be updated frequently. It's not just going to stop where this project, which is important to realize. So how you folks can get involved. So there's going to be stakeholder engagement meetings. We'll probably send it out to your group so that David or someone else that's part of the committee can disseminate the information so that you folks can come to those public meetings. Say your piece, make comments, write things down, give it to us. We're going to review all of that information, and then we're going to take all of that, compress it all, and try to figure out what we're going to do from there based on what people want us to do, on top of our internal stakeholder meetings, which we're going to talk to all our departments within the city and do a similar process where we're going to take all that information from our internal experts, break it all down, and see how it lines up, and then we're going to try to achieve those things over the next, hopefully continuing forever. But yeah. So there should be a minimum of 2 meetings. Yes, ma'am.
Who is on the steering committee?
The steering committee is internal and external to things like the counties. So Great County's on it. We have Conservation Authority on it, as well as several departments within the city itself.
So
Staff and other government organizations that will steer the project. But stakeholder engagement is part of steering the project. So it's just steering it so that I know what I'm doing, like day to day for work. It's to steer the project in a way that I don't get lost in the weeds going on in the direction. Yes, sir.
Are the Great Lake water levels going to be already in that, or is it going to be up to someone to ask that in the stakeholder meetings and to bring it to priority?
Great Lake water levels we are considering because all of our stormwater at the front, lakefront is kind of inundated right now, so we're already considering that as a big factor within the stormwater. Because if we can't get the water out into the bay, there's a problem. Yes, sir.
So one question that I'm observing with almost all watershed management organizations is that mostly flood is causally linked with rainfall, which is not entirely true. Flood comes from runoff, and runoff comes from the combination of rainfall and no absorption.
Yeah, so I just digitized.
So just the soil sponge quality that holds back water and keeps it on the soil, in the soil and puts it into the groundwater, is something that I don't see that in watershed quality reports. I see the forest, but not the entire drainage. I don't see the drainage systems, and I don't see how fast water is being routed down.
So,
what is that going?
So, one of my major backgrounds is I do hydrologic and hydraulic. One of my main backgrounds is that I do hydraulic and hydrologic modeling. So that's something that's very close to my heart. So one of the things when I started this project is I digitized the entire land cover for the city of Owen Sound to a 1 to 500. So I traced every single building, every single patch of grass, everything. So it's digital, so that we have those values that we can put into our hydraulic and hydrologic models, as well as we're going to get so as well as we're going to look into soils. I think there is someone that's actually, I think someone's trying to update the soils right now. OMAFRA is trying to update soils right now, so hopefully that information comes out before then, but until then we'll use the Canadian Geological Survey for soil information, and that will also be a component. If I get really into the weeds, we'll even try to do some snow surveys. Try to get some snow.
And that's how I know that I've worked with that map also. I wrote the assessment report for this area for climate change impact under the drinking water source protection, which is kind of similar to what you're doing. I think a lot of duplication. Nobody knows the sponge, the water retention quality of soils because that requires soil carbon.
Yeah, so like the problem is I can't model everything. Like I'm one guy.
I'm not blaming you. I just think that decision makers need to,
and yeah, for sure,
learn what's the most important or most sensitive variables that we don't measure. And soil carbon is one of the big things because 2 inches of rain on a soil with good carbon get absorbed within 5 minutes. No runoff at all. 2 inches of rain on an asphalt or a highly degraded soil runs off, creates a
So we
cloud.
do take that into effect with land cover, and I think you're talking about CN and BN. So we do take that into effect in hydrologic model. I don't know if you've ever done any hydrologic modeling. I believe you're forced to you work for the CA or agency. So yes, that is taken into effect. The only problem is that you have to remember that modeling can only get us so far. It's a projection. They're usually conservative. We're trying to blow them up a little bit more than they are, so that, let's say all that soil is saturated, and we had a big rain. And most of the time we're modeling it based on a saturated scenario, because we don't know if it rained the day before, all the soil is already filled up, and then it rains, and then it all sheet flows off. So most of the time when we do those models, they are conservative to make sure that so that we're protecting more property and more people So like even though the soil, yes, it can absorb something, it might have been already fully at capacity. And if it's fully at capacity, then that's like if it rained for 5 days and then we get a 100-year storm after that because it's building up to that, or another hurricane comes up like Hazel and it soaks everything and then it just hammers us with a 1,200-year storm, then like all of that's not going to matter, which is kind of the thing. If you were in a small neighborhood and you really wanted to perfect that stormwater, that would be something that I would say yes, take it into effect. But when we're looking at something on an area as big as Owen Sound, you can't really fine-tune the models that well. I don't think the technology's there, and I don't think the computing power is there yet. Unless you guys want to pitch in for a quantum computer, because I'd love that. I just don't think it's there yet. Especially like even with the Mike 5 models that are coming out and stuff like that. We're not there, and we can't fine-tune those stuff, at least from my perspective.
So we're ignoring soil.
We're assuming the soil is usually about 50% wet, and we'll run all those scenarios, right? So we're assuming that it's already got water in it, because we don't want to assume that it has no water, because then if we make the models and we're like, oh, it's all dry, and then like 5, 10, 25 people's houses flood, they're going to be like, what happened, guys? And they're going to be like, well, we run it as it was dry, right? So that's one thing for modeling. And if you want to have a discussion about that later, I'll talk to you for hours about it.
So how do you take into account the difference between the absorbability out in the country and what can be absorbed in the city?
So the way that I did that, like I said, I digitized the entire land cover for the city of Owen Sound at a 1 to 500 scale. So I was looking at or aerial photography, and I was tracing out all that information to get the areas that are grass, built up pervious, built up impervious, so like concrete or gravel. You've got farmland, you have roads, you have streets, you have beaches. So I've collected all that information, and we assign values to those based on usually the mean value in the chow chart. The chow chart lists all that kind of stuff and gives you an idea of how it holds back the water. Those surfaces hold the water back or let them run free. So like, for example, I think, can't remember the numbers exactly, but a forest is 0.14 value, which tells you that it's going to hold the water back further than like an open water, like an open channel, can hold the water back, or concrete, or vehicles. So we do take that into effect. Sorry, I get quieter. I used to yell a lot, and I've tried to tone that down a little bit. So, yeah, essentially I've collected all that information. It took about 3 weeks to collect, of me just sitting in front of our computer, and now we have a co-op student doing that, so that saves me a lot of time, and I can see again, which is super great. So we are collecting that information. I'm trying to make it as much as a detailed assessment as I can, because I really hate crap data, pardon my language, because like they say, garbage in, garbage out. So if you put garbage into the model, you're going to get garbage out of the model. So I'm trying to get as much non-garbage into the model so that we can produce good outflows from the model. I'm trying my hardest. The dates for the stakeholder meetings will be put out. There will be a minimum of 2. If you have any questions, you can contact this guy, which is this guy. Any further questions? There's my contact information. We've got a bunch of cards over there. If you want to pick up my card, call me. I'll talk to you about it. It's part of my job. So, yeah.
Just one thing. This group, there's a lot of people here who are not from Sanity here, who belong to the climate action team, and they are from around and about. But if I sort of parsed out just the Owen Sounders here, it wouldn't overflow the council chambers. Let me just say that. And when we get to the public meetings, having spent 5 years going to every single city council meeting and many committee meetings, it's really, really important that people go to the public meetings and that they say things, because the chart you had there with the money on it, that's where it's going to start and stop with city council. They're going to say, that's nice, I understand this, I see this, but we don't have any money for this. We can't do this without increasing taxes. It is literally going to take Owen Sound's residents, citizens, to go to city council and say, if we have to spend it, we have to spend it. If our taxes have to go up to pay for it, they're going to have to go up to pay for it. Because if we don't do that, then literally at that council meeting, they will say, that's very nice, thanks for the report, well done, Chris, but we can't afford any of those numbers that you wrote in there.
Yeah.
And I'm only seeing this as an observer of the situation.
Well, hopefully they don't say that, and I don't think they will.
I was going to say, I don't know if a lot of you have noticed, but the council that we have in now is actually committed to addressing climate adaptation and mitigating those risks. And they've actually asked that staff look at this as one of the reasons why they support this project so much. And although we are funded by FCM, we are also putting out money into it as well, because they do recognize the value of it and they are supportive of it. So it is definitely the right time for us to bring this forward to them, because we know we do have that support. The most important thing is for us to understand what our residents and business owners and all our other external stakeholders want to see, and then taking that information and developing it into a realistic and achievable action plan.
Yeah, so like one of the things in the action plan,
adaptation plan.
Sorry, the adaptation plan. Sorry, I always screw that up. So the adaptation plan. Thank you. The adaptation plan is when we get to the end of the project, we'll start doing easy wins. So we'll start hammering off a few things in each department to try to get those done. And then we'll start tackling things as they come. So no, we might not throw millions of dollars at it, but we might throw some money when we have it here and there kind of thing. If we can't afford to do it, or we can do it, or if it's feasible to do it, we will try to accomplish that.
I think it's important to understand that if you don't have a plan, you also can't save for it.
Yeah.
So those things that are going to be more expensive, we need to identify them and evaluate what the cost is going to be, and then we're going to achieve those things. So they're definitely those things that are important, but maybe more expensive, are not off the table. We need to plan that first in order to use a plan to do that.
Yes, I have a question about the large runoff that comes from huge parking lots for malls all up along 16th.
Okay, so they're actually
do they not have any holding places where the water can be held back?
Yeah, so I was actually talking to
good.
someone the other day, and we were talking to our acting general manager the other day. He used to be a planner, so a lot of those have stormwater management. You just don't see it. Some of it, there's a huge stormwater pond, I think it's a retirement community building. When you come down, you know where 16th does.
Oh yeah, I know.
So you know that building, you know that big area?
The Four Seasons or the Seasons
Yeah,
or something.
that's it. So you know that big natural looking area with a fence around it? That's a huge stormwater pond that delays the water from going out.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's one of the components. I believe Walmart has a pretty big one. The one up on, or Walmart deals with it some way. I can't exactly remember how they deal with it. The one up a little further, like PetSmart and the Winners and stuff, they actually have they actually have underground storage for stormwater.
I think it's also important to know, though, that those private properties, when they're developed, they are required to implement stormwater management on the facilities at their cost, and we overview that, or oversee that, and we ensure that they're holding back their stormwater and not inundating our infrastructure until we can
And
handle
the
it.
CA actually helps. Producer.
I heard the word mitigation related to protecting the resources of the city in response to stormwater. And my understanding of the climate change terminology is that adaptation is a response to extreme weather, and mitigation relates to the reduction of greenhouse gases.
Not at all. Mitigation is anything, it's not like we can also mitigate things by building wetlands to slow down water.
I appreciate that.
Or LIDs, those are also mitigation tactics for stormwater. But yes, most of the time it is towards greenhouse gases. But this is the adaptation plan, and mitigation might come down the road. Yeah, this isn't a mitigation plan, it's an adaptation plan.
First, congratulations to including wetlands as a climate change management, because I think that's also soils and wetlands and forests, they're different, looking at different spots for the same thing. You showed that map, and the damage was really centralized on very few spots. the assessment map from the creek. And
This stuff?
yeah, and basically the story you're telling is we have to save a lot of money for those spots.
Yeah, so like the idea is that for example, in Buffalo Creek, those would be effective roads. You could get road washouts, and the idea is that.
So what's happening in our municipality, in our road, is that they keep on putting more money into maintaining one road, where a lot of people in our neighborhood are saying, stop doing that. It's a waste of money, because then we do have to create $20 million emergency funds to save those few roads.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense to rethink our planning and...
Yeah, it does. So like a lot of the time, stuff like highway management is designed for a 25-year storm, because the problem is that the expense of putting in big culverts is so expensive. Putting in that 25-year culvert, they believe that it's going to get more use, you'll get your money out of it. So it is a cost to benefit scenario, and I'm not an engineer. I don't know. I don't deal with that very often, but I know a lot of the time those things are built to 25 years. Stormwater is usually built to 5 or 10 year, and it's usually inundated. But then they usually have for stormwater things like ditches and stuff to channelize that and get it away. So yes, it would make sense to put in a 1,200-year culvert, but the problem is
I'm saying, why don't we just close a few roads when they're in the middle of the floodplain? That get inundated every year and cost the taxpayer. Like the few spots take 90% or 99% of the repair money. Why do we keep on feeding that beast?
I don't know. That's a question for. That's a question for me. I don't know.
Anyways, folks, if you're using a water management, you design for 5 years. You provide storage for 100 years. So your system is always draining the water. So what you do, the perfect scenario is if you're starting from scratch, you'll have storage in parks, you'll have it in your backyard, you'll have it on roadways. Parking lots, every road store water, and slowly release that water back into the surrounding environment. And that way that keeps everything running. Your roads are still dry. You're in your parking, say water will be more than 12 inches deep or 300 millimeters, and slowly that water will drain away. And that's how you design it. You can't afford to design for the worst case scenario. You can't engineer everything on it. You just can't afford to do that. And I take your point where there's this road drain get damaged, why we have the road there? They wind up and build around so you don't have to use it in case this worst case scenario happens.
So people lay the grid over there, and some of the grid roads just take all the costs because
so like, and especially with roads like this, like you have to remember a lot of these roads have houses on them, and people live in those houses. The other thing is that you can only design so big for like roads like this. Again, they're designed for a 25-year event. And they're supposed to have up storage, but sometimes they get blown out. And another thing is like a lot of these roads were designed before we had the information. So like digital elevation models, they were you couldn't figure out how much water was coming through. So sometimes a lot of the time they just slapped it in and went like, hopefully this is good enough. But that's not I'm not saying that's everywhere. Like engineers do good jobs. It's just like things like this. There's a lot of houses on that road.
What is that road?
I can't tell you. But like you can't design for everything. So this is the worst case scenario event. This is the Timmins storm. This is a 1,400-year storm. So this is only going to happen. Like even now, like even with the still a really rare chance of it happening. So I wouldn't say that these are good to take. Like if you look, maybe at so I don't have affected roads in there, but like when they designed this system, it's pretty good because like in the Timmins storm, there's only 19 people affected, and like some of those are barns. Those are just like guest structures that could have people living in them, but there's only 19 people affected. 19.82000 based on the census. But like you can't design for everything, right? So that's why sometimes they have to rebuild stuff because people still live there. and you have to still accommodate people that live there.
So are those numbers based on that, the AR?
No, well, these numbers down here are.
Okay, if that's true, then are we really talking about a parts per million of 650? Because if we are, it seems to me that this is all peanuts. Because the problems are going to be much, much bigger than this.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they are. But again,
why are we wasting our time? Sorry, I better shut up.
Yes, sir.
Maybe it's a question for the other staff members. Do you get a charitable tax receipt or anything when you donate, or when you're doing estate planning, anything like that? Is this all sort of like if you were to donate from estate planning, is that a drop in the bucket compared to what the funding is provincially and federally, or is that still appreciated, or where does it go to?
I have to get back to you on that. You can definitely take my card, and we can discuss it and get back to you on that.
Do you register charity though for donations or for event proceeds or anything like that?
I believe so, but they're directed to specific areas, so not necessarily, like I believe it has to be done a specific way.
It sounds like, Chris, your wish list might be more co-op students. Is that true or no?
Man, if I had 2 co-ops, things that I could accomplish. Yeah. Like if you're like co-op students in what level? Like college co-op students or high school?
I'm just speaking in general needs as far as your plan, your climate adaptation.
If I had environmental engineering technology students or environmental engineer students, that would help me a lot when it comes to stormwater modeling. When it comes to climate modeling, if I had students of a caliber that knew more about climatology than I did, that would help a lot. Planning students would help a lot. We're actually going to write project proposals to universities in the next few months to try to get some planning students to help us with our policy and adaptation planning when it comes to climate change and stuff like that. So we are looking for that. If you have contact with that, we'd be very happy to talk to you. I don't know anything about donations. I don't know what that is.
Part of the problem with the project is complex. And it's hard to get funding for one staff person. You can't do it for one staff person. So we really are trying to hold, and we're already stretched to the max. And I know at the CA, we already have a lot on the plates. So we're trying to pool our resources, and like Chris said, we're doing universities, but and planning, policy, also communications, the stakeholder engagement, that type of thing.
I guess what I was driving at in a really roundabout sort of way is what can we do personally to make sure there's a robust plan at the end of the day?
If as a citizen, if you want to make sure there's a robust plan, come to the stakeholder meetings, give your suggestions, give your ideas so that I can look at those and try to write the plan better.
And speaking from a CA perspective, for those not in Owen Sound or even those in Owen Sound, talk to your own municipalities, especially the ones upstream of Owen Sound. Let's get Georgia Bluffs doing this, let's get Chatsworth doing it, but that type of thing, and then maybe have a more consistent approach rather than piecemealing, and that's what we're trying to do our whole with the watershed approach.
Does that answer? Like, if you're looking to influence the project and try to help us, stakeholder engagement is really good. If you want to donate time, I don't really know how that would work because the problem is that if it's just a volunteer basis, I can't really depend on volunteers because they might drop out.
You were joking more about a better computer, for example.
Oh, that was a joke, like for models, but no, our computers are pretty great. But we'll always expect that. If you can make my PC swim run faster, I'd be so happy. It runs pretty quick, but it would be great to get it down to like 2 hours. Yep.
So do you have those that Timmins storm chart for the Sydenham Potawatomi, or is it just for that river off to the side?
For the risk assessment.
For the risk assessment?
Well, yeah, because this is kind of a river that's going through like some farm fields, right? I mean, but do you have one like this, like a picture like this, but for the Sydenham?
We have FDRP mapping from the 80s.
We do have some flood mapping, but in terms of this process, the specific risk assessment, that was funded under the National Disaster Mitigation Program, and we only did it for Rothwell and Frederick Camper Down in the town.
Because they were the ones that kicked in the money.
They came and put in that.
Because we need matching funds sometimes to get these projects accomplished, so if the town doesn't support us, or if another organization doesn't support us, CAs were pretty poor. We can't always afford these projects. Yes.
What is the timeline for finishing your study and starting the?
So I'm hoping to finish
the plant meetings.
Yeah, so we're looking to have the public meetings in either January or February, first ones, and then probably have the second ones a little later in the spring. We haven't got definitive dates yet. We're going to work on that with the steering committee and try to figure out what those, because we have to allocate staff to come and set up chairs and make sure everybody, like, we can actually get it organized. For modeling and stuff, I'm hoping to have modeling done by next year, next Christmas. Modeling done. I hope before then, hopefully before then. Next August. Next August is when I hope to have them all. I'm thinking of my chart, like my organization chart in my head right now. So next August, I'm hoping to have all the modeling done for the west side of the city. We have some pretty comprehensive studies on the east side, so there'll be that. That'll also wrap up all my science pieces. And then, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so stakeholder engagement stuff will be in the spring of 2020, and then the modeling should be wrapped up in the summer, and then we should start moving on to actually implementing the plan after that summer. That's when we should start looking into actually implementing it. So it's a long time. It seems like a long time, but it's already been 6 months, and that scares me. Yep.
So what's your best guess? What part of the city is most at risk for flooding right now?
That's what I'm working on trying to figure out. If that makes sense.
Has it happened? I don't know.
Yes, it has happened. I've gone around with the public works, and we've wandered around, and they've shown me areas that have flooded, and I'm definitely focused on those areas when it comes to calibrating models. We're also going to try to see if we can fix those areas by remodeling it in a different way, so that we can maybe change it so that it actually doesn't flood. But there are some areas that we have marked as areas of concern. We're continuing to go through historical photos and stuff to mark them as areas of concern to make sure that we refine those models in those areas. Does that answer your question for now? I'm not going to say certain people's addresses because that's not
It's kind of a sad scenario that we're now in adaptation that we had talked about since 30, 40 years, which we wanted to avoid, but now we're there. But my question is, do you collaborate with other conservation authorities or other organizations? Because the whole issue on water is so complex, and I know you try to have these models, but the Ottawa River, for instance, flooded like crazy 2 years in a row, so there are 200-year floods within 2 years. And obviously they do modeling too, but obviously the modeling didn't work. And they now really think about taking
Where is this, sorry?
the Ottawa River
Yeah.
in Ottawa, Gatineau, and downwards. Was anybody in Ottawa in the spring? It was amazing. There were rivers and lakes in the city. So, things are not as linear as we often think they would be.
Yeah.
Like we think now by 2100, right? I wonder what the Bothwell River would look like in 2080 when we have very different weathers that you might not be able to.
So the problem with some of that is that a lot of houses were already built in the floodplain before either a conservation authority came in or there was floodplain.
Yeah, but they talk about in the Ottawa River area that they might have to abandon certain areas because there will be more floods.
Yeah.
So a question would be also, for instance, how does this data, this knowledge impact, and the science impact on building codes? So, for instance, in Europe, many places like in northern Europe, I know in Germany, where garages and sheds and many houses have to have a sod roof now. So that would absorb the water. Right?
So like that, you're talking about green infrastructure to mitigate that?
What's that?
The green infrastructure to mitigate that.
You might call it green, but anyway, infrastructure that is actually already including and integrating the increased rainfall and to keep the water back, right, rather than having the water.
So when the policy is written, some of the things that we'll look into is better stormwater management practices when it comes to that. Once we've done all the stormwater modeling, we'll have a better understanding of how our stormwater system reacts and where the water goes after it inundates our stormwater system. So hopefully down the road, Owen Sound can slowly improve those areas as the money goes along to be like, hey, all the 25 of these houses get flooded, we probably should dig a ditch here, do something to stop that. So that will come out of it, and those problem areas will be identified. I think that's one of the things that are going to come out of it.
I mean, right now I'm thinking, for instance, a new subdivision will go up on the other side of the hospital.
Things have improved a lot since then. So, like, the thing is, they have to do a lot of rigorous, because I used to review subdivisions when I worked at Nonosaga Valley Conservation Authority, so I reviewed their floodplain mapping, I reviewed their stormwater, I reviewed their sediment erosion control plans, all that kind of stuff. So they really have to engineer to certain standards that won't happen. Like new subdivisions, it is a lot, with some exceptions where there are some where they don't do it right. A lot of the time there's a lot of stringency put on that, so it's less likely to happen in new communities. Hopefully that the engineer did their work right than older communities where the technology wasn't there to assess, if that makes sense.
Okay, I think I'm going to have to stop the questions now. I see there are questions, and I'm sure Chris can talk to you after, and Gloria and Kim as well. So I'd like to really thank these people who brought us. Coming out tonight, and you're certainly welcome to come Thursday of every month. We're having planned meetings here. So the next thing on our agenda is our reports from our committees. So we're going to do these really quickly. We're supposed to be out of here at 9, but hopefully you'll have a chance to talk with the people after we vote. So communications, Danuta, do you want to speak for the communications committee?
I can, yep. I'll try and be brief. I might stand. I don't think I'm going to get up on the stage, though. Can everyone hear me okay? Mm-hmm. So, and now I can see who I was sitting in front of. So our communications committee meets once or twice a month, actually, depending on how busy we are. We are working towards a number of objectives. Following up on direction from Owen Sound City Council, we need to present a case for action on climate change at a municipal level, is basically how I interpret this. We've made a draft plan at our last meeting, which was, first Monday in October, to present the youth petition to the City of Owen Sound at their council meeting on November 18th. So this is the petition that has about 600 or so names on it, I believe, and it is asking for a declaration of climate crisis. And then follow on from that to actually make a presentation to the Operations Committee at their meeting on Tuesday, December 10th, which gives us enough time to get something organized in support of creation of a task force for a specific term of 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, which would include council members and other members of the public, youth groups, Indigenous members of the population, and land use, farming sectors, to look at what that task force might include. In advance,
Marilyn and Liz, two members of our communication committee, will draft terms of reference for a task force committee and send that out to the communications committee for input and because that's the next plan, and also to look for input based on going ahead there. So naturally, we want support at the council meeting on November 18th. If we go ahead with this plan, it would be really great for people to come and support our youth group.
Mark it on your calendars. Mark it on your calendars.
Mark it on your calendars, yes.
What's it, November what?
18th of November, which would be the council meeting on Monday night.
The council meeting?
Yeah.
What time does that start?
Usually starts at 7, right?
Yes.
7?
Yes.
It's good to get there a little early. So the rest is just little updates, okay? Network of groups started up in various local communities is growing, and it might be an idea to have a symposium in the spring so that people can get together as a region and see what everyone's doing. Liz has printed business cards with links on them for signing up for the newsletter that we send out through MailChimp, and also to find us on the website and Facebook. And so she's got a limited edition of those. I haven't got them to hand out, but they are sort of in the works, and we can print more. But it's a matter of just so people can find us. So if people are having trouble finding us, there are ways. The MailChimp is what we're using for our communications to our mailing list, and if someone's not on our email list, I don't know if you have anything for them to sign tonight? These are the business cards, but I think she only had 100 written.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a limited edition at the moment, but letting you know that we're trying to make ourselves more accessible.
I'll put a sheet over there if you want to leave your
That would be
email
good if
address.
someone wants to be on our email list, so that we get information about what we're doing. And so that was basically the update from our last meeting, and principally important to let you know about our plan to go forward with communication with the City of Owen Sound. In the meantime, in between the last meeting and now, Councillor Kathy Colburn of Georgian Bluffs reached out to Liz at one of the Friday rallies and asked her about any public input or any input we as a group could bring to the Georgian Bluffs Council Strategic Plan meeting, then having an open house meeting at Shallow Lake Arena on October the 30th on their strategic plan. And she was suggesting that it would be good to have some people talk about climate change, the Georgian Bluffs. So there's a group of us that are going to get together ahead of time and just a small group to talk about questions we could ask and things that we could bring to that meeting. But I would encourage anyone who's interested, particularly people who are residents of Georgian Bluffs, to put that on their calendar too. Just October 30th in Shallow Lake Arena. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. The new development, in case those of you, did I say that properly?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
For those of you who don't know the new development. Okay. Waste management. Barry, do you want to speak or do you want me to?
Well, you probably know more about it maybe.
Okay, well, the main, our waste management group is, our goal is to have Owen Sound become a zero waste community. That's a big goal. There's a lot of steps to get there. So, actually next month, November 21st, our meeting here, we're having a panel. And that panel is going to involve, I want to talk to Dennis about this. I haven't talked to him specifically. I missed that meeting on Tuesday. I thought Tuesday was Monday. Hopefully we'll talk about that. But we've got commitments from Jamie Grimaldi at Miller Waste and from the town of Meaford, who does green bin pickup and plastic film recycling, and West Gray. and who else? It's slipping my mind, but that's going to be a panel we're having next November 21st here. So if you want to mark that on your calendars, to show up. And our committees are always looking for new blood to come in. So you put your name on the list over there, you can say, I'm interested in such and such committee, or I want to start a new committee. Totally happy with that. Anything else, Gary?
Well, just to focus on, the composting and the residential composting in Owen Sound, that, for me anyway, that was one of the driving points to have this committee, because we know that there's a financial barrier to it. There's a lot of good information tonight about projecting into the future the costs related to not doing certain things. And I think if we include some of those in the composting discussion, including greenhouse gas emissions from landfill sites, we can make a pretty good argument that we need to keep food waste out of the landfill and compost it, reduce food waste.
So that's basically a report from our committee.
Maybe you want to mention the recent thing on natural burial.
Yes.
But maybe I'll just mention that.
I hadn't listed that on my list. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. No, because it's only this week that actually something has actually happened. The city of Owen Sound has to do a strategy plan for the cemetery every 5-10 years, forgotten what it was. They surveyed their community members, residences, and they got back a lot of information. And basically, this week, the cemetery manager is reporting to the Parks Committee. I don't know if when the meeting was, if it's today or when it's going on, but I know it's this week. And they're basically reporting that there is a high demand for natural burial to be provided. And they also indicate that the city of Owen Sound is capable of providing that need. So it looks like when they do their report in November, their plan, which they haven't written yet, they've only presented the feedback information that they have received from the community. In any event, it seems to be a strong endorsement of natural burial. They want to include it. They know how to do it. It's something they can do. And they, at least the cemetery management, is interested in including that as part of the cemetery plan for Owen Sound. And because I've been working in this area for a number of years, I've gotten contact from Thornbury. They were very interested. They formed a group to get natural burial going in the Thornbury area. I just spoke to someone last week from West Gray. They're very interested in the issue, and they want to promote it within that area. So yeah, just suddenly stuff is happening in that area, but it took a number of years. But anyway, looking pretty good right now. So hopefully we'll see something in the spring.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Logan, is the bicycle committee, or bicycle transportation?
Well, it's mostly bicycle for now. And we're actually currently making the bicycle-friendly community application. And so I've talked to the City of Owen Sound, to several planners and engineers, as well as to the police department, to ask them about like legals and things like that, and called the various schools in the area for the education portion to fill in the application. So we've more or less got almost all of it together. I still have a few more meetings with the police and the City of Owen Sound tomorrow, and then hopefully we'll have it all together and we'll be able to submit it tomorrow, which is the due date, October 18th. And so if we don't, then we can just submit it in the spring. But the idea with the bicycle-friendly application is that we may get the award, like for instance the bronze award for the Share the Road, and that would put us kind of on the map, increase tourism, bicycle tourism, as well as people moving here that bicycle, and it would also motivate the city to put in more bike lanes and more kind of accessible transport. And we are looking for new members. I had one member, but I don't have their contact information. But yeah, if anyone's interested in cycling, in sound, or knows anyone that's interested, please contact me or David, or join the Climate Action Facebook group, and we'll get in touch. Okay. Oh, and another effort after we do the bicycle-friendly community application. One of the next steps is to form a bicycle advisory committee. So for the city of Owen Sound. So if you're interested in being part of that, that's another reason to join the bicycle committee.
Just out of curiosity, the suggestion that you maybe look at active transit. So, I mean, it's going to create a lot more work, but like looking at trail systems, potentially, there's a program in Collingwood where neighborhood groups have like walking buses, I guess, for kids walking to school. So I don't know. There's just a number of.
Oh, okay.
Other
Like if it's
aspects.
active transit that you're trying to promote, I wonder if there's other ways to do that. Because like not everyone has a bike, but it might use trails.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Currently, the focus is on bicycles, but I mean, there's different kinds of human-powered vehicles, and all of that is included. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, biking trails and things also increase the amount of walking access as well.
Okay, thank you. Barry?
For this, the other committee that is kind of fledgling at this point, we're told, and myself and several others, the renewable energy committee.
Yeah, I'm just coming to that.
Pardon?
I'm just going to call you or be told up.
Well, so with a lot of different issues and a lot of different meetings, we haven't scheduled a time for the workshop, but in partnership with the Great Bruce Sustainability Network, they have some funding to help organize an event that could bring in local solar panel suppliers and geothermal people and that kind of thing to really help people understand what they can do in their homes or buildings to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and that kind of thing. So we'll keep chatting about that. I'm always told that. And part of that will be a tour of the Tolls property.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, the only other thing I've done individually,
Do you want to stand up, people, so people
because
can
of lack of anyone except for myself, is I'm personally setting up a workshop in the early spring, bringing people who are living off the grid, people who have done things, and saying it's not just a matter of producing electricity from renewable energy sources. It's a different lifestyle that involves green living, green building materials, and lowering the amount of power that we need to live. So I have already a list of 6 or 7 people who will be interested in giving information. And for me, it's more important to talk to people who are living this lifestyle, and then secondary, to have the people who are selling the products that will allow us to do that. So that's going to be happening sometime. No one knows this except for me because I'm doing it on my own. Is that I'm planning to do this sometime in April, when weather gets a little better and people can explore various areas in Grey Bruce that are already doing things.
So is it coming tied to companies, or could it just present?
The people who I've been talking to are people who are basically, yeah.
Oh, so you are.
Yeah. So, this is the second Grey Bruce. That's correct. Yeah. So the idea is to bring a balanced approach to not only people who are supplying the methodology through selling products or whatever, but people who are living, using their ingenuity to come up with easier and better ways of living that lowers our carbon footprint. And there are many ways of doing this, in addition to using renewable energy.
Thank you, Vitul. Is there anyone here from the youth committee? We're all past youth, I guess. I know I am. Am I missing any committees? Tom Rice was going to head up electric vehicle committee. He's not here tonight. So I think we've covered them all so far. The next thing on the agenda, and I think we can do this really quickly, I was chosen as chair, and Danuta is our secretary, and Logan is our treasurer. And when we took that on, it was a 3-month thing, and we've gone past the 3 months now. So I'd like to just have a talk to all of us. We've kind of said that we were willing to stay on. Is that the will of the group that the three of us stay on, or is that... Any other business that anybody wants to bring up at this point? Barry.
You mentioned the facility here and the contributions.
Well, I didn't yet, but I think Logan was kind of doing that at the door. But we don't pay a rental on the Harmony Center, so we kind of throw in a couple of bucks when we go, when we come here. So that's what that jar is there.
It's a minimum $2
Yeah,
donation.
minimum $2
per person.
donation. Okay. Okay, so our next meeting is November 21st. We're going to have that panel. So you're all welcome to come. You're all welcome to join one of the committees. And we come out on Saturday to the farmers market, to the zero waste event.
2 o'clock.
Okay.
2 to 5. Come
2 to 5. Yep. Okay.
You don't have to stay for the whole 3 hours. You just come
No, you come and go.
Yeah, it's a clothing swap and a photo challenge as well. So super fun.
Yeah. Okay. There'll be a bunch of stations there, and I think there are like 10 or 12 stations. Composting, I don't know. Do you have them off your top of your head, all the different stations?
No, I don't, but it hits up every part of your lifestyle to reduce everything in your garbage bin.
Yeah. Okay. I think we can call the meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming up. Thank you.